Kelowna is the fastest growing city in British Columbia, with the third fastest growing downtown in Canada. Over 148,000 people call Kelowna home, a number that is expected to grow by 45,000 by 2040. And as with any city this size, it takes an awful lot of work and a massive amount of money to keep things operating.
When you think about the city's budget,
Okay.
what is the most important thing to you?
Accountability is the biggest one. You got to be accountable, you got to be transparent, you got to be able to show where is that money going.
I'd love it to be a bit more public as far as maybe ways that they could let us know exactly what's being budgeted, how the money's being spent, and make it more accessible for the everyday person.
Is it going to what is really needed or what is wanted?
When it comes to funding the overall budget, how much of that do you think comes from our property taxes?
Probably about 40%, I would think. It's got to be significant, because where else is it coming from?
I'm going to say 40%.
Yeah.
I'd say about a third.
I have no idea. Yeah, I would guess 40, but no clue really.
So why does it cost so much money? This is Kelowna's city manager, Doug Gilchrist. He is responsible for preparing, proposing, and executing the city's budget. He sat down to answer residents' common budget questions and share some insights on what it takes to manage a budget and deliver services for a city the size of Kelowna. Taking into account operational costs and capital requirements for future growth and the community needs, the 5-year average annual cost from 2018 to 2022 to run the city was $585.2 million.
So why does it seem that the budget increases every year?
The budget does increase every year. Our city is growing, the fastest growing city in the country, in fact. And with a growing city comes growing costs of operating that city. We also have inflationary pressures, more so now in the last couple of years than in the past. But our basket of goods is expensive and increasing every year, and we need to keep up with that inflation.
What is this money used for?
So all kinds of services, some of which would be common to most people, like garbage pickup and recreation centers, street sweeping, park development, park maintenance, things like that. And some that might be a little less common for some people, like checking our water quality in our lakes and air quality and other things like that. So I say we have 16 distinct lines of business, but the number of services is much greater than that. If you think of the reason local government largely exists, it's to provide services that people cannot or should not do themselves. So sewer, water, those are services people can't supply for themselves. Policing, bylaw services, those are services they should not supply themselves. But the society as a whole benefits from it.
Let's break it down. Of the overall budget, approximately 45% is spent on safety, things like RCMP, bylaw, and fire services. Approximately 13% is spent on the upkeep of our parks, beaches, and trails. 11% on transportation-related services like roads and sidewalks. 12% on planning and development as the city continues to grow. 6% goes to maintaining our transit service. 5% goes to fund active living, which provides recreational amenities for the community. The remaining 8% cover the costs of our utility service, streetlights, debt, and awarding grants. But what might come as a surprise is that of the overall budget, only 25% comes from annual taxation, once any carryover funds from the previous year are applied.
We use reserves, which is really like a savings account, reserves that we build up over time. Grants are really important from other levels of government. And then the fees and charges that we charge people to use the services. So that can be paid for by citizens, could be from people outside our community, could be tourists. When you think of boat launching facilities or our rec center facilities, parking, different things like that, there's a fee for service. So those collectively make up the funding sources that we have to provide the services for our citizens.
As an example, in 2022, the City of Kelowna generated about 75% of its total revenue, over $490 million, from sources other than annual taxation. A good funding example would be new developments, which offset the city's budget through development fees and building permits to pay for things like parks and transportation, which otherwise would have come out of taxpayers' pockets. Not all city operations are funded through taxpayer dollars. For example, the Glenmore landfill operates off a combination of fees for daily usage and recoveries from recycling efforts. And the Kelowna International Airport is completely self-funded, not receiving any money from City Hall.
My name is Shane Deardahl, and I'm the Senior Finance and Corporate Services Manager at Kelowna International Airport. In a year where we have approximately 2 million passengers, we would normally spend about $19 million on operating the airport. So that's ensuring everything is functional, operating the experience that the passenger has, so that the bag belts are running, that the electricity is on, the lights are running. Any funding on capital infrastructure would be over and above that and would be an investment in a given year. All of that is funded through the fees and charges at the airport and is not taxpayer funded at all.
So you don't take any taxpayer dollars?
No, the airport does not utilize taxpayer funding, so we're solely funded through the fees and charges we collect from the passengers that go through here, the airlines that operate here, and any of the other tenants and operators at the airport. And in fact, we actually pay back into the city, the general fund each year.
Another source of revenue that goes into the general fund is the various grants awarded to the city each year, thanks to the work of the city's grants and special projects manager, Michelle Cam.
As the grants manager, my role is to strategically identify, pursue, and manage grants on behalf of the City of Kelowna. So we work with external organizations, mostly senior government, to get funding for the City of Kelowna for council and corporate priorities, but we also work with other funders such as foundations and nonprofit organizations. Grants help with a lot of different things across our community. So they help with infrastructure projects, sewer, water, active transportation corridors, building retrofits, and even park investments, as well as programs and services, including helping people that are sheltering outdoors.
Staff have also taken initiative to find creative ways to save money in various departments. Perhaps an unexpected example of this is the recycling of nutrient-rich biosolids from the wastewater treatment plant. Instead of sending the material to a landfill, the city composts it with clean wood waste using a dynamically controlled aeration process, eventually creating a regulated compost product known as OgoGrow.
We turn waste, or a number of waste streams, if you want to look at it that way, into a beneficial product.
Not only is OgoGrow sold back to the community and wholesalers, it's also used by the city's parks department, avoiding the cost of having to buy compost from an outside vendor.
We've really tried to empower people to come up with ideas at all levels of the organization, not just to save money, but to be efficient and to provide better services to citizens when they see the opportunities. It could be anything from using an electric bike to monitor pavement quality on our sidewalks, as opposed to the old school method of walking around. It could be in our parking area, where we use license plate recognition to more efficiently monitor parking throughout the city. So lots of opportunities in the future, and a number that have been implemented already.
So over the past 5 years, the average tax increase was 3.42%. What does this look like to the average homeowner in Kelowna?
Well, if you think of that number in relationship to inflation, the first few years that you're talking about was probably slightly above inflation. Now we're likely a fair bit below inflation. So we're really keeping pace with the costs of goods that we acquire and services that we provide. In absolute dollars, it's probably about $70 a year for the average person. So we do need to keep it in context, but understand that every dollar is important to our citizens.
But it's still hard when everything's going up due to inflation. Gas and groceries, everything's up.
Yeah, we certainly understand and empathize as taxpayers ourselves in this community. And we don't want to see taxes go up any more than necessary. But we do know and understand that our citizens also have an interest in keeping our service levels high. And it's pretty difficult to do one without the other.
But navigating how to spend money wisely for the future of the fastest growing city in Canada can be a real challenge. That's why in 2017, the city reached out for consultation with nearly 4,000 residents over 18 months to showcase the community's vision, principles, and goals to thrive in a growing and changing city. The results were compiled into a document that guides how the city operates.
Imagine Kelowna set the vision for our city for the foreseeable future. and gives us guidance on how to allocate resources to meet the citizens' expectations. And then there's also other levels of planning documents where the community should be representative in those documents. Our official community plan, our different goals and strategies that we have, and certainly council priorities. Council priorities plays a big role in how we allocate funds to achieve the objectives of our community through the eyes of council.
It's critically important that citizens get involved by participating in public input sessions that will help shape our community in the years ahead. Building on Imagine Kelowna and what it heard from the community, Kelowna City Council develops a set of council priorities to help guide investment. The priorities are the results council wants to achieve or significantly advance during its term.
They have the ultimate power. The budget that I administer is on their behalf. They approve the budget, they give guidance to what goes into the budget, and then it's up to the administration to utilize those funds wisely and deliver the services that are set by policy. What I really like people to understand is that there's a lot of rigor that goes into our expenditures. There's auditing processes, there's oversight, there's political involvement through our council to a large degree, and that we, at our very core, want to make sure we're expending our money wisely. I think we have some really passionate people here at the city always wanting to do the right thing for our citizens, and financial accountability is one of those things that we know is part of that passion and ingrained in the mentality of being a public servant, right? It's important that we do this part of our business extremely well.
For more information about the budget, including a full and transparent breakdown of past budgets and current financial plans, you can visit Kelowna.ca/budget.